Well, well, well. This is an old biologist. Thought it'd be a good idea to shoot a video about aging jawbones. There's a lot of dissension, a lot of concern over the accuracy of the technique, and unfortunately, the accuracy of the technique depends on the biologist that you use. All are not created equal. Experience counts, and after you look at a few tens of thousands of them, you get pretty consistent. Never gonna say you're accurate, because like I've said, you have to be there by that doe when she drops that fawn. Snap an ear tag in the ear to know exactly how old that buck is or doe. But I will say that consistency and application of the technique and the model and the method matters. So what I wanted to do in this video is show you some various ages and show you some of the characteristics on tooth wear and replacement that I look for. So with that, I'm going to go over some of this with you, and we're going to get in here and age some of them and show you what we look for. All right, we've been in here aging jaws, and I've got clear-cut examples here of almost every age class. We're not going to look at a fawn jaw, because a fawn will look similar to a 1-year-old. Everything hinges on severing house tooth wear and replacement on this third premolar right here. These are the milk teeth that a fawn has. On a fawn, these will be sharp, and only 4 teeth will have come in. 6-month-old deer. All right. On a 1-year-old, you will still have the milk teeth. The third premolar will have 3 ridges. We call them cusp. 1, 2, 3. And it will have wear. The brown part is the dentine. The white part is the enamel, much like dentists talk about our teeth. But our teeth, generally, the dentine is not exposed. But when you have wear on a tricuspid third premolar, that is 1. Also, a 1-year-old will have more than 4 teeth. And it's very common to see the last tooth coming in on a 1-year-old. This is another example of a 1-year-old. You can still see the teeth coming in, but you can also see there's not as much wear on the lingual side, the tongue side, but on the cheek side, the buccal side, you can see that there is wear. You can also see wear right here, and it has more than 4 teeth, so that gets you to 1. So remember, a 1-year-old is a tricuspid third premolar. On a 2-year-old, this is the third premolar. It has 2 ridges. It is bicuspid. You can see very little wear on the first molar, very little wear on these permanent teeth. And you can also see this ridge in the back on a 2-year-old has very little to no wear. On a 3-year-old, you can see this indentation here on the third premolar is now beginning to cup. You can see brown, and it's wearing together. You can also see that the first molar is opened up and beginning to show more dentine than enamel. And you can also see that this last cusp is beginning to flatten out. Compare and contrast. The 2-year-old near my thumb, the 3-year-old near my index finger. You can see the difference in the wear. On the third premolar, right by my thumb, versus the 3-year-old. You can also see the first molar has opened up on the 3-year-old where it hasn't on the 2. And then the last tooth has no wear versus that amount of wear. A 4-year-old, and you have some subjectivity here. This tooth had an abscess or something go wrong. He broke it off. Flip it around to the other side. You can see that that's beginning to wear together. You can also see that that has opened up significantly. You can see that is flattening out more. And you can also see that the second molar, now a lot of dentine is exposed right there on that second molar, versus on the 3-year-old, the second molar, you don't have as much dentine exposed. That versus that. All right. A 5-year-old, you're seeing significant wear on the premolars. You're seeing dentine on the first molar almost twice as wide as the enamel. The 4-year-old tooth, the dentine is significantly wider. And on the last molar, you can see that the dentine, the brown, is very readily exposed. Now, how I do this is, some people would not call this deer 5, but the tendency is to underage jawbones. And you can see that that dentine is opening up on this last tooth very strongly. And you can see that this one's beginning to flatten out. If I have anything that leads me to age the deer any older, any indicator whatsoever, I round it up a year, especially on a deer taken in the first half of the season. So that to me is a pretty clear-cut 5. This is another 5-year-old. You can also see the wear on these premolars, how opened up the first molar is, how opened up the second molar is, and then you can also see that there's a lot of dentine exposed on this last molar, and then this last tooth on this one, heavily worn. In addition, you're seeing the same trend on the other side. This one didn't have as much wear on this side versus that, but the deer commonly chew on one side more than the other, and you can also see that all of these molars have opened up well. So that is how I call a deer 5, based on this tooth. That is your 5-year-old tooth, and it's beginning to flatten out here. You get to 6 years old, flattening out heavily on the first molar, and the third premolar, they're flattening out a lot. And then you get to granny deer, granny doe nannies, with wear like that, where all of the teeth are beginning to flatten out. You can see, you can't even readily identify a cusp except on the lingual side of the jawbone. Here's one more. And anything really past 6 years old is an educated guess. All of these are just applications of a model, but you can definitely see how, as they age and get incredibly old, it is more and more difficult to get an accurate bearing on how old that deer is. Just a brief walk and talk. A lot of people are just ridiculously confused, and it is fairly complex, applying the severing house method, tooth replacement and wear on deer, to determine within reason how old the deer is. But I guess what I want you to take away is that there are no absolutes, and it's not 100% correct, ever. All you can do is consistently apply the model and manage on the average. That's what we do. We manage on averages. And we use average antler dimensions, average body weights, and averages based on proportions of the harvest in each age class to make informed decisions. And if you apply the averages and you use the data, you can make a huge difference in the quality and overall health of your deer herd. But I've noticed over the years that there hasn't been a lot of discussion about how to age a jawbone. So I wanted to provide that to y'all. I figured you would enjoy it. And like I said, you need to look at about 50 or 60,000 to get pretty consistent and proficient with it, because all of those were clear cut. I didn't show you any tweeners. And those tweeners are where all of the questionable deer usually lie. And you have to use 2 of the 3 criteria for each age class to make an informed decision. So the ones in between have tooth wear that are showing signs of being 3 and 4 is where the problems lie. But y'all have a good one, and I hope that this affords you a little bit of information, a little bit of wisdom. Thank you. Appreciate all y'all.